Okay, so we're gonna watch Macron, the Russian threat. Okay.
Lives lost. Our
See what
ally,
you're
the
gonna say.
United States, has changed its position,
See what you're
and
gonna say
there
to
are
the world.
doubts about what will happen next. At the same time, even the United States is trying to impose tariffs on goods coming from Europe. And the threat we are witnessing from war and terror is not diminishing. Our peace.
Of course, they are putting tariffs against Europe, and Trump already said the reason. Europe is charging and fighting and, all over the place American companies, and it's unfair. So what is going to happen is going to be reciprocity, buddy. Reciprocity.
Peace, our security, are more uncertain. We are entering a new era. The war in Ukraine has lasted more than 3 years, and since the first day we decided to support Ukraine and impose sanctions on Russia. And that was the right choice, because it's not just the people of Ukraine who are fighting for their freedom, it's also our security which is under threat. If a country can invade its neighbor in Europe and go unpunished, then nobody can be sure of anything. It will be the law of might is right, and peace can no longer be guaranteed on our own continent. History has taught us that lesson. And beyond Ukraine, the Russian threat is real. It affects the European countries. It affects us. The conflict as Ukraine has become a global conflict. We're seeing North Korean fighters, Iranian equipment.
So talking about the security of Europe, how the illegal immigration is going on in Europe, in France, in the UK.
Which is being used to help Russia arm further. President Putin is violating our borders to assassinate opponents, manipulate elections, hack hospital systems. We see lies being disseminated on social media, and our limits are being tested in space, on land, at sea, in the air and behind our screens. Russia, through all this time, is continuing to arm, spending more than 40% of its budget to that end by 2030. Russia plans to increase its army to have 300,000 additional soldiers, 3,000 rather extra jet fighters. Who can believe that in this context, Russia will stop at Ukraine? Russia has become and will remain a threat to France and Europe. It is something I deeply regret. But in the long term...
Well, on that one, he's absolutely right. It's a problem of Europe. And I think what they regret is that they didn't put enough security. They just bought billions upon trillions of dollars of Russia's gas, guided by this neoliberalism agenda, this globalism agenda, this woke agenda that Trump already put a hand on the table, literally, and start removing what everybody was fucking tired about. This woke agenda that started with Obama and gang. Continue with Biden.
Peace will return to our continent with a pacified Russia. But we have to look at the situation before us. To remain a spectator in this dangerous world would be crazy. We need, without any further ado, to take steps to guarantee the security of France Europe and Ukraine first. All of the initiatives for peace are going in the right direction, and I welcome them. And we need to continue to help Ukrainians resist until they can negotiate with Russia a solid and lasting peace for themselves and for all of us. The path to peace cannot be achieved by abandoning Ukraine. We cannot conclude peace at any price, according to Russian dictate. The price of peace cannot be the collapse of Ukraine, nor can it be based on a weak ceasefire. And we've had experience of this in the past as well. We cannot forget that Russia started its invasion of Ukraine in 2014, and we negotiated the Minsk Accords ceasefire. That was something that Russia didn't respect, and we weren't able to maintain the balance because there weren't solid guarantees. So we can't take Russia at its word. Russia has a right to peace and security for itself, and it's in our interest and the interest of the European continent. So we're working together with Britain, Germany and other allies. You saw me over the last week traveling for a few days to London, meeting with allies in Paris in order to make commitments that are necessary for Ukraine. And once a peace agreement is signed to stop Ukraine being invaded by Russia again, we need to prepare. Obviously, that will involve long-term commitment to the Ukrainian military and perhaps the deployment of European forces. Russia will see this. Our forces will be there, if necessary, to guarantee peace, not before a peace agreement is signed. And we will continue to meet with allies to move towards the signing of such an agreement. It's a plan for.
So he's saying right now that French troops are going to Ukraine? Is that what you're saying?
Which we're working on with European partners and Ukraine, and which I went to advocate for in the United States just a few days ago. I want to believe that the US will stand by our side, but we have to be ready for that not to be the case. Whether we reach peace in Ukraine soon or not, we need to recognize the Russian threat.
Put in American soldiers in Ukraine
in order to deter such attacks.
Do you really want to escalate
this to provide ourselves
and probably get to a nuclear
in terms
confrontation
of
with Russia
to provide a dissuasive force?
Or like, what's the plan?
And we're committed on that path. We need to do more than we've done in the past to reinforce our defense and security. The future of Europe cannot be decided on in Moscow or Washington. Since the fall of the Berlin Wall, we have seen 3 decades which are now behind us. We're moving on to a new age. We're meeting with the Commission.
Looks like France is growing some balls
the
now.
European Council for an extraordinary summit. We'll take a number of long-awaited steps which we've been proposing for a number of years. Increase in military expenditure, which is something that will be allowed without having it to be subject to deficit rules.
Now, finally, they're going to spend some money on military, actually,
can be produced
closer
on
borders to
soil.
illegal immigration.
The
And
latest cutting-edge technology.
what are you going to do?
Mobilize the
They're going to
government.
do the same as America
Strengthen our
too?
armies
They're going to
as soon as
start
possible.
banning people who is
Accelerate
protesting
reindustrialization
in pro of
in
terrorists
all of our
and against
countries.
your
We'll work
society?
together with the
Are
enterprises
you
in
drawing
these sectors
balls?
in the coming days. So, Europe's defense sector, which we've been asking for the last 8 years, will have to become a reality to allow European countries to defend and protect themselves, to produce the equipment they need in their countries, to allow them to cooperate more, and to allow them to reduce their dependence on outside actors.
This is a mistake
Germany,
that's
Poland,
been made
Denmark,
for decades.
Baltic states, and many of our partners
Decades.
have announced
Europe has been
unprecedented efforts in
going
terms of
to
military
crap
spending.
for decades.
So as we
They
look
allowed
ahead to
this to
these
happen.
actions, France has to recognize its special status. We have the most efficient, effective army
They have
in
a weak
Europe because of
military
the
and they have
choices
a
made
weak
by our
society.
forefathers after the Second World War. We have a nuclear deterrent which
Weak
protects us a lot
military
more than many of our other
improve the
neighbors.
green and the environment and
But
the
we
globalist
didn't expect
agenda and eat bugs and own nothing and be happy.
it wasn't
Social
necessary
communism,
to await the invasion of Ukraine to recognize the increasing threats. We've seen how necessary it is to build our defense, and we've doubled our military budget, as you can see on this graph. Because of these efforts, we are now in a position to make supplementary investments, and we need to be brave. Our nuclear deterrent helps us. It is comprehensive. It is a sovereign deterrent, French from beginning to end. And since 1964, it's always played a role in preserving peace and security in Europe. The future German Chancellor has called for a strategic debate on providing that same protection from deterrent to our European allies.
Okay, this is what happened in
The decision will be in the
1964.
hands of the President
France
of the Republic and the heads
permanent
of the army,
nuclear deterrent.
rather the head of the armies. We have
Okay.
our fate in our own hands, and we need to make choices in the military dimension, but we also need to ensure
Yeah,
our
there's
economic,
something like
technological, and industrial independence.
the
We need
death
to
hand
prepare
on
for the
Russian nuclear
situation
defense.
of tariffs being imposed,
Well, that's the
as they
last
have been
resort
on
from
Mexico
Russians.
and Canada by the US. This is an incomprehensible situation, both for the
The
US economy
deterrent
and
will
our
be
own.
their nukes, usually the US.
It increases the difficulties of this time, but it will not go unanswered. So as we work on a response with our European colleagues, we will continue, as I said 2 weeks ago, to try everything to convince those involved that this would be a harmful than in the past. And that's why I've asked the Prime Minister, the government, all political parties and political stakeholders to come up with proposals that are fitting to this new context. The decisions of tomorrow cannot be based on the habits of yesterday. So, my dear compatriots, because of these irreversible circumstances, we cannot indulge in excess of triumphalism or defeatism. We will follow a single.
France is talking tough. Let's see what is actually gonna happen. The thing is that they cannot really rely too much on the U.S. or anybody else, especially when they don't want to pay, and especially when Trump is withdrawing. They don't want to be involved in Europe anymore, especially against Russia, especially on a financial crisis where the American dollars literally was about to implode the economy, the entire economy, because over the $35 trillion on US debt. So all of this actually that Trump is trying to do is to save money. If America had the money, the available money to spend, like freely, left and right, they had in the, say, 90s, 80s, 70s, from the 50s all the way to the 90s, right? 2000s. And with Obama, that exploded, right? Because they just printed money like crazy. Right now, the economy is about to collapse if they don't readjust or come up with something more creative. Pay attention, the reserve, the crypto reserve, just got created, the crypto summit. Watch that one too. Watch that one with Trump. Actually, I'm gonna do a review on that one too today. Anyways, subscribe.